now my pleasure to serve on Lever's board and to introduce our panel discussion this afternoon. So first I want to introduce to you A.J. Enschel, who is a legislative assistant in the office of Senator Adam Hinds. Outside of his work, he wears many hats in the community, including right now as the chair of the Black Economic Council. Thank you, A.J., for helping us host this discussion today. And then our panelists, we have joining us John Bissell on the screen from his home office via Zoom. John is the president and CEO of the Greylock Federal Credit Union. And here we have Sean Hall, who is the Director of Employment at Berkshire County ARC, and Michelle Lopez, who is the Executive Director at the Berkshire Immigration Center, and finally Jade Schnauber, who is the Workforce Programs Manager at Lever. Each of our panelists aims to affect our local workforce and to create more inclusive local environments. So I'm going to turn this over to AJ now so that we can begin to hear about the work that each one does.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited for today's discussion. I'll be your moderator for today's Inclusive Strategies for Workforce Development panel. My name is AJ Enschel. I'm the president of the Berkshire Black Economic Council, a newly formed 501c3 here in the Berkshires, and our mission is to aid and advocate economic development with respect to education, neighborhood revitalization, arts and culture, and the recruitment and retention of Berkshire Black businesses on behalf of the Berkshire Black entrepreneur community. So I'd like to pass the mic off to Michelle Lopez from BIC. Actually, Michelle, there's a mic right there.
Battle of the mics.
Please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Lopez. I'm the Executive Director of the Berkshire Immigrant Center, and I have been here in the Berkshires for just over 2 years. At the Berkshire Immigrant Center, we're a small nonprofit. We have a staff of 6 people, and we aim to help immigrants navigate the complex U.S. immigration system with affordable legal services, free civics classes, ESOL classes, and educational resources available to them.
Hi, I'm Jade Schnauber. I'm the Workforce Programs Manager here at Lever. I use she, they pronouns, and for our workforce programs, we have both a Berkshire Intern program as well as Berkshire Entry, where we work with college students and recent graduates to help them enter the workforce here in the local Berkshire region. During that time, we put on workshops for them to help with career development, as well as introduce them to different people in the community, local employers, to help them expand their networking skills and regional network.
I'm Sean Hall. I am the Director of Employment and Community-Based Day Services at Berkshire County ARC. My job is to help people with developmental disabilities and physical disabilities gain employment within the community. We have been successful in many different locations throughout Berkshire County, from Jiminy Peak to the ponds at Fox Hollow to Airtight Holders, where we've employed people with disabilities successfully, some for 20 to 25 years in the same program, which is really awesome. Our community-based day service program is to help students who are transitioning from school into the employment field to work with soft skills, interviewing skills, resume building, and all of that sort of stuff so they can be active members in the community with employment.
Hey, my name is John Bissell. I'm the CEO of Greylock Federal Credit Union. We have about 300 employees, wonderful employees here in the region. We're about $1.5 billion in assets, and we are, in the context of the entire country, of course, we're not a huge banking institution, but in the regional economy, we are significant. We provide more mortgage loans than any other institution, more auto loans. We're one of the only providers for local credit card. We also have an independent insurance agency that's growing fast, and we have an investment group that has almost $200 million in assets under management. I'm delighted to be here today. I really appreciate being invited to this panel, and AJ, thanks for including me.
Thank you. So before we get going on some of the questions that we have, I want to quickly preface by saying that these questions are being asked through a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens. And so my first question for you, Michelle, what have been your successes in creating your impact on the regional workforce?
Our successes at the Berkshire Immigrant Center so far have been really through showing local businesses and entities that they need to be translating their websites, their information on social media, brochures, printed materials, and job postings into several languages if possible, mainly Spanish, and then the two other languages that we see most coming from immigrants recently is French and Portuguese. So I really encourage local businesses and entities, if you are looking to develop your workforce, if you're looking for new employees, if you're looking to be more welcoming, I'm sure you can afford to pay for the extra widget to add on to your website to have things translated into other languages. If you don't have a professional translator in your current employee pool, paying somebody to translate your materials. If you have to, Google Translate, it's not the worst in the world. It shows that you're making an effort, and I think that's probably the biggest success we've had is getting that language access information out there.
Well, it's critically important, and I'd like to pose that question to the other three. Jade, it looks like you have the mic, so please.
Yeah, so with workforce programs, we work with interns, college students, as well as local employers. I'd say one of the biggest successes that we've had is really changing the mindset of hiring interns and hiring college students. In 2018, we had plenty of companies that worked with us and placed interns, but a lot of the conversations I had prior when I was starting to recruit were that interns weren't worth the work and the time that it was to put into training a new college student only for them to leave in 10 weeks. Alternatively, I heard a lot from my peers, because I myself grew up in Berkshire County, went to DeConnick High School, and then only went as far as MCLA. I heard a lot of my peers itching to get out. They were like, there's no work here in the Berkshires, and nobody is going to hire me for the type of job I want. And many fled to places like Boston and New York City, not seeing those job opportunities. So in our work in the past, 2-3 years, I've really worked with local employers to both show them the value of hiring young people into your workforce and those new ideas that they can bring, as well as helping young people see that there is value in staying in a local community, especially where your family is and you already have good ties and network connections through parents, people you worked with, teachers, as well as showing them that there's a lot to do here, including Tanglewood and events, and getting them excited to really start their lives and careers here in the Berkshires instead of fleeing to somewhere where they see more opportunity or think there is more opportunity.
I think our biggest success for employment with Berkshire County ARC has been opening the community's eyes to the fact that people with developmental disabilities or physical disabilities can work just as well as anybody else. They are productive members of society. They love to go to work. They are always smiling and happy when they go to work, which is a wonderful thing for employers. There's always been the stigma of people with disabilities can't do what other people can do. And we're here to break that and tell you that they can. And they can do just the same things as everybody else. We have people who do custodial. We have people who do housekeeping. We have a injection machine operator. We have people that work doing heavy equipment stuff. So there's a variety of different places, and I think that sometimes people will say, oh, they have a disability, they can't do what everybody else, or it's gonna take a lot of time to train them. We train them, we bring them in, we support them, we make them productive members of your employment site. And that's a big success for us. And you can see them more and more and more out there doing what everybody else does. And that's wonderful, in my eyes.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
I'd like to pose this question as well to John, and then going forward, I think what we'll do is just only ask a few questions. So, John, what successes have you had in creating success in the regional workforce?
Thanks, AJ. I would say the biggest success has been to start with our business case. Why are we trying to hire for more diversity? And we've really spent 5 or 6 years working on the business case and on our culture. And that's allowed us to have about 4 times greater a percentage of employees of color today than we had 5 years ago. But it didn't start just with hiring differently. It really started with changing our culture. All of our employees have had cultural competency training. Our senior managers have had many, many years and a lot of depth of cultural competency training. And it's really about adapting the culture. Our board is also much more diverse than ever. We have 15 people within our board and our supervisory committee, and 10 of those are women and people of color. And I want to emphasize also that we think about all the different dimensions of diversity. So I'm pleased today that people who identify within the LGBTQ plus community also have much stronger voices within Greylock than ever before. This is really important work for our long-term survival. That's why we've built a strong business case around it. As you know, a couple of years ago, 36% of the students within the Pittsfield Public Schools identified as people of color. That gives you a really strong feel for how the demographics of the region are moving, and we need to move with them. We're really looking to a time when what we're striving for is that our employee base and our management ranks reflect the communities that we serve. And so we've had some success to answer your question with doing that. We now have, as I said, 3 or 4 times greater percentage of people of color within Greylock than we had previously. So we're on the road, but it is a journey, we'll never be done.
Well, John, while you have the mic, what have been some of your biggest challenges?
Well, the biggest challenge has been to bring that same level of success into our management ranks. That's been much slower. I think a lot of folks who do deep DEI work would tell you that that is expected. But we're working hard on that right now. Within the next 5 years, we want our management ranks to also reflect the communities that we serve. That's important because it's not just about representation within the organization, but it's about decision-making power. Who has the ability to shape policy, to shape strategy, to make key decisions. And so that's what we're looking for as we move forward. And as I mentioned before, that has started with our board, and our board is really holding us strongly accountable for that. Our board's an excellent representation of our community. And I do expect us to see progress over the next 5 years on that. But that's been a tougher challenge for us, AJ, so far.
Thank you. And now I'll ask Michelle.
Our challenges?
What are your challenges?
Well, the Berkshire Immigrant Center is comprised of 6 staff members, and only 4 of us are full-time. 2 of us on staff handle the majority of the Spanish translations with the help of 1 major volunteer, so 3 of us help the many, not only translations that are requested by our clients, who are our #1 priority, but we are getting more and more businesses, cultural entities, educational institutions asking us to translate their information, which is wonderful because it shows that they're really trying to be inclusive, to be welcoming, to be sharing information in people's native languages. But to be honest, we just can't handle the number of requests that we're receiving. So I encourage people to get out and pay a professional translator, and unfortunately, it's quite expensive. But yeah, our biggest challenge is our own workforce. We're a very small nonprofit.
Mm-hmm. Jade?
Yeah, so as I said, we changed the mindsets of companies and young students to stay here, but we did have a big critique on our program, which was that we weren't serving students who were really needing the help. And many of the students coming through our program were majority white, their parents went to college, and they potentially grew up in the area or grew up pretty well off or comfortable. I met 2 of the students who actually attended MCLA with me, and they were 2 Black students, and I asked them after their internship, hey, are you going to stay in the area? Are you interested in more internships? Because I'd add them to my list and I'd help them get connected. And they both said to me, no, we don't find community here. And that has stuck with me for a while. I learned that back in 2019. And then I came on full time as an employee at Lever, I really worked to try to change that and show students that there's community here for all different types of people, including students of color, including the queer community, and including those whose parents didn't have the experience that they might now be able to have. So that's been one of our biggest challenges, but I think we've definitely overcome it. We created the I2P2 program, which is the Inclusive Internship Preparation Program, in response to directly help those students prepare applications for internships and enter our workforce with more connections than even some of their peers might have.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you. Now, Sean, I'd like to pose that question to you. What challenges?
So I can talk on twofold. So one of our challenges is opening the eyes of employers to people with developmental disabilities. Our biggest challenge right now is similar to you, is our workforce, because Berkshire County ARC is a very large organization, and we do have a very diverse culture in our agency. But right now, we're having the same problems everybody else is having of finding staff. I am getting calls after calls of, can your guys come and do this? We have opportunities for that. We have opportunities for this. But I don't have staff to send with them. I don't have staff to go and develop. So we're trying to do all of this great promotional stuff. We're doing billboards. We're reaching out to different communities, different culture communities, trying to get as many people in as we can. But our big challenges are that our staff, and then for us, from my perspective, is opening the eyes of the workforce to accept people with disabilities as valuable employees. But we're breaking that. It's
Okay.
good.
You'll get there.
Yes.
Well, I really like to ask this question, and I'll just put this out to all of the panelists. What is something your company or organization is doing that you wish the greater public had more awareness of?
I can go ahead and start holding the mic. So as I just mentioned, I2P2, our Inclusive Internship Preparation Program, is definitely something that I wish the greater public had more knowledge of. We just did our first pilot this winter from January to April, and we'll be doing our next one next January to April, kind of following the recruiting scheme and the way things flow around here. One of the main features of this program, as I mentioned, is that we need to make sure students are finding community within our community here in the Berkshire County area. So a big component of this program is mentorship. We recruit mentors from local companies. Many work with colleges, so they already work with college students. But the key factor of this mentorship program is that these people are also from the same underrepresented backgrounds as our students, so that when they make this mentorship connection, they're making a connection with somebody who has a similar life experience and can guide them in how to navigate the Berkshire workforce, because they've probably done it and the student hasn't. This has been a really great program, and many of our mentors continue to stay with our students and mentor them even outside of the program, which has been really awesome for us to see. It wasn't a requirement, but we're really happy that they've continued those relationships. And that's kind of what I want to say. I think Angela Dixon made a really good point, and I think John also touched on it, is that students or any employee going into an organization wants to see in leadership someone who represents them and someone who looks like them, because otherwise, how are they supposed to know that your values align with what they value?
That's a thoughtful strategy.
Thank you.
I think what I would, it kind of goes along the same line of what I've been saying along, is just to open the eyes of people in the community that our individuals can do a fantastic job for you, and the amount of things that we can do for you as a company. We take away some of the stress by helping to train the individuals. There are tax credits for hiring people with disabilities. There is support from us on a full-time basis where we come into your organization and say, how's everything going? Do the guys need retraining? Do we need to fix anything? What are the problems? So you have somebody that you can really work with directly to say, oh, this is what we need to fix, and we work together as a partnership. It's not like we leave somebody off and say, oh, they're your staff now, bye-bye, have a nice day. We stay there and we support you. And then, also that there's other things that we do as well. We do things we take students and we do vocational evals, and sometimes we'll come into an organization and say, hey, could we work here for a day? Can we just show this guy, he'd really like to learn how to do this? Can we do that? And it's a nice opportunity to kind of help get a step in for our individuals, for people to see that, hey, they can really do some great stuff even in a day just learning. So I would say that would be it for us.
Through my Senate work, you've been, your team, Berkshire County ARC, has been a terrific help to plenty of our constituents, and truthfully, I did not know about that service, so I appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you.
Michelle, something you want to add?
Yes. One of the key goals that we have at the Berkshire Immigrant Center is to not only educate the immigrant community on their rights and the resources that exist here in the county, but to also educate employers, community members, faith-based organizations, educational institutions on what the immigrant community in Berkshire County looks like, needs, appreciates in terms of an employer, an educational institution, a nonprofit. Our staff and volunteers can come into your place of work and give a presentation. We can collaborate together on a workshop. Greylock and BIC collaborate often, especially in terms of educating the Latino community on financial information, buying a house, et cetera. So we are more than happy to do that, to be collaborating with all of you as employers and businesses and institutions.
Well, thank you, Michelle. And John, my good friend, I haven't forgot about you. Looks like you want to answer this question. Please, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, AJ. I think the thing that's true about Greylock that I wish more people knew is that we are hiring like crazy, and we're not just hiring people with banking expertise. We have great internal training and development programs. We really appreciate partners like the Berkshire Immigrant Center and Lever and Berkshire County ARC. We're partnered with BARC as well. We have a fantastic employee who joined us through that program. And so there's a lot of opportunity, and you don't have to be a banking expert in order to get onto a career path. We're happy to hire people and train them up. And there are some terrific careers, both in traditional financial services, but also in, you name it, every aspect from finance to marketing to risk management. On our website, greylock.org, we have dozens of opportunities right now that are out there. And we're certainly looking for bilingual talent. Michelle brought that out earlier, the need for more language skills within our institution, where we want to be welcoming to new Americans and people coming to us from different parts of the country, different parts of the globe. That has been a key part of our growth. Our Kellogg Street branch, which is located just you could throw a rock or a baseball from where you're sitting right now over to that branch. It had been on the decline for decades. When GE, the site that you're sitting on now, when GE left that site, the membership of our Kellogg Street branch just went down and down and down for most of my lifetime. But now it's rising again, and it's because we have a much more diverse staff working there. We're much more open and inviting than ever before. We do a lot of financial coaching through that venue. And we have a lot more bilingual employees there. And so the membership in that branch has started to go up and up and up. So it's really a great virtuous cycle. When we get that going, we can be more welcoming. They can really tap into the financial system and fully participate in the economy, and Greylock can grow. But we need terrific employees to help us make that work. So that's the one thing I'd love to get the word out about. So thanks for that chance.
Thank you. And I'll say, every time I step into Greylock, I'm welcomed and I feel comfortable to be banking with you all. So keep it up. So I do have a few more questions, but I think at this point, we should share the floor with the audience and see what questions you all have that you might want to ask our panelists. Is it Wes? We got a microphone coming.
So one of the things that I notice is that when we talk about workforce development, we don't develop all of the areas. Like you talked about specific skills that you need people to have that are basic, used to be taught in the high schools, are no longer taught in the high schools, so they have to go out to another source to get that. But I'm wondering about how we develop a process for building the skills for people who are ages, say, 18 to 40, that they can have so they can earn a livable wage and that they are able to sustain their life here, because people leave after college because they're not making enough money to sustain them. And if you're talking about students who come from families where they've been supporting the family the whole time, you're talking about students who have to have a job while they're in college because they don't have that allowance coming to them, then I'm wondering why we don't have in this area, or we're not pushing for sustainable skills like forklift operators, people who can work construction, because there's always construction work. Different parts of it. I know John talked about not just hiring tellers, but also hiring people in different aspects of their business, whereas the Immigration Center has very few employees, but it would be great if there was an internship for second language learners or first language speakers who are Latina or Latino. So I'm just wondering what it is that can be done to help these people develop the skills so they can sustain an affordable life here in Berkshire County. Other community colleges offer trainings like certificate trainings, fiber optics, CDLs, all of those things that people are here, they have to leave here and get those skills. And then once they leave here and get those skills, they end up going someplace close to where they've gotten the training. If they go to Springfield or if they go to Albany to get those skills, they're going to get offered a job right away. And then they're going to leave our community, and here we are. We used to be 75,000, now we're down to our 40s. So when we talk about workforce development, we really need to give people skills that they need for working and sustaining their lives, in addition to the kinds of skills that you're talking about, to be able to sustain this community. And had you thought about developing a collaborative where this workforce development, so that when you have an innovation center, how do you come together and get those trainings here for those people? Because it's expensive to travel back and forth, and not everybody has that kind of finances. But these are the laborers that you need, especially if you're talking about manufacturing or keeping your place. So have you thought about that as a possibility?
Yeah, so the question is workforce development. It's also workforce mobility. It's also certifications and education training. Is there any collaborative work that any of your organizations are doing around workforce development?
I'll go first. We have a few grants in the fire right now with several other nonprofits and businesses where BIC will be assisting with the cultural competency consulting for these different entities, providing translations for these workforce development programs. One includes hiring and paying a very livable wage and giving benefits to different community navigators that will be going into the immigrant community. We need to also remember that in workforce development, you need to meet people where they're at. So are these employers going to the Festival Latino, for example, tomorrow in Great Barrington, where a giant majority of the Latino community is going to be? You could have, rented a table and brought your, jobs available signs and had an opportunity to tell people about your company or your entity. I just think, yes, short answer, there are plans, and obviously this workforce development issue has been around for a long time, but I think it's just been exacerbated by the pandemic, and because of that large disparity that has been created, luckily the state and the government and private foundations have been developing these grant opportunities that we are applying for to help.
Thank you. So for Berkshire interns, there's kind of two parts to the program. The first one is getting the students the internship, but the second one is helping them learn transferable skills during the whole summer so that even if they don't decide to stay at that internship and go somewhere else, that they'll have skills like this. Some of these skills, we meet them the first day before they even go to their internship, kind of meeting them where they're at, and we let students know all the things they need to know before they start their internship, whether that be how do you dress on the first day, how do you potentially, if it does happen, call in late or let your employer know that you have a doctor's appointment. So small skills like that we work on throughout the whole summer, including presentation, networking, and things like that. But in terms of certificates, we actually have a really great relationship with Berkshire County ARC, where we place interns there, I think, for the past 3 summers, maybe the past 4. And the students, when they go there, earn specific certificates for their actual industry. Our program is focused on a variety of different industries across all of Berkshire County, from manufacturing to humanities to business to finance. So we can't always offer a certificate to all the students that will help them all. But their employers a lot of the times do. So with Berkshire County ARC, my sister was a intern there just 2 years ago, and she was able to get a lot of certificates that will help her later on in her psychology degree and becoming someone who works with the community, maybe people with disabilities, maybe children, but she has those certificates now to work off of. So those are kind of the things that we're personally doing and how we're partnering with people like Berkshire County ARC, like LTI, to get students in these positions where they can learn those things and get certificates like that.
So I can just say for what we do for our skills, we start in the school system very early, probably like around 16. We have a pre-ETS program, which is a pre-employment program where we have a person who goes into the school systems and teaches a lot of the interviewing skills. That we use a program called virtual job shadowing, where our people can go on and they can watch what a forklift operator does, what a sous chef does, whatever, because when they're in high school, they have no clue what's out there. They don't know the different opportunities that are there. So we try and broaden that out so that we can say, look at all the different opportunities that you can have, not just a custodial cleaner. There's a lot out there. For BARC, we do a lot of interns. I was lucky enough to have the interns this year with my employment program and wanted to keep each and every one of them because they were so fantastic. So it's just a way to open up the eyes to what's out there and what we can do and what we can build. But our pre-ETS program for our people with disabilities is fantastic because when they come out of school, they understand, and then they'll do a vocational evaluation where we'll take them to five different sites and they can try a job for a day. And then once they're done with that, then we have an idea of really where their road is, that they're really great at this, so let's focus on that. And we've really kind of come outside the box and really tried to focus on what our guys want to do. We have one of our individuals is now a photographer, and he sells his own photography all over the place. And we have an artist that is in residence at one of our other buildings, and he commissions art all over the place. So we're trying to give them those experiences to see what's out there so they maintain part of this community.
Excellent. And John, how is Greylock collaborating to improve workforce development?
Thank you, AJ. So to answer the question from Wes, there are a number of programs through BCC and the Regional Employment Board. I know they're looking hard at how to answer some of the deeper questions that you're asking. And Greylock is a partner in many of those discussions. I think we could all wish that our local workforce preparation systems were stronger. They should always be stronger and more inclusive. At Greylock, though, when you refer to those kind of basic skills, we are willing to train people on those. We're happy to have people come in and be paid as full-time employees with great benefits, and we will bring to them the skills that they need to be successful. So people don't need to come in fully, prepared by some outside organization. We're happy to take that on. And then to keep that going, we have a strong tuition reimbursement program. If people are already coming to us and they have some college debt, we have a program to help them pay that down. Every month we'll make a contribution toward paying down their debt. We know that to retain a great workforce over the years, we've got to invest in their growth, and that's something we take very seriously. And that, over the years, I think that will change. We'll come up with more innovative ways to do that. Internships have been a great way. There's many of our best employees who have now been with us for 5 or 10 years, started as interns or started as part-time employees while they were going through high school or college. So we're constantly looking to fill that pipeline as well. But the question is an important one. And I think for people who are uncomfortable with their soft skills, really looking to strengthen those soft skills, there are other partners in the community that employers can work with, like Linda Dooley. I know she's worked hard to help people cultivate their soft skills and be ready for a successful career. So I think there are quite a few resources in the community, and we're proud to be a partner with many of them.
Thank you. See, John, even on Zoom, you're smooth. You ever see a news anchor? They wait 3 seconds before they answer the question. All right. Well, any other questions from the crowd? We have one in the back.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. Again, my name is Greg. I've asked a couple of questions over the past couple of days. With the question, I'll give a little bit of a preface. I work for a French company in Pittsfield. I've hired a Russian immigrant. I work next to the blue queue. So I know your services very, very well. I grew up mostly in New England, but I also grew up north of Houston as a young kid. I've been exposed to, let's say, I don't want to say necessarily racism, but lack of diversity. I've had, as a Polish, Italian, French, and Irish person, I've also received bigoted comments, particularly when you move down south, as a Yankee going down south. I'm all for the diversity. I'm all for giving people opportunities and continuing those opportunities. So my question's twofold. One is, here we're talking in generalities. What are the numbers of, let's say, black, brown, unemployed people that want to work here versus the number of jobs that are available? I hear that Greylock has a number of jobs. I know that General Dynamics also has wide variety, or a high number of jobs, but skilled jobs, engineering jobs. Do you have a sense of what the numbers are of these prospective employees, number one? Number two, as a person who travels around the country, also to Mexico and Canada as part of work, I run into racism all the time among colleagues and everything else, right? It's there, it exists. It'd be blown smoke if you thought it didn't exist. What do you do? What does a gentleman that manages Greylock do? What does a guy with exposure to the Senate do? When you bump into, let's say, somebody who's could be anti-Semitic. We have the Feigenbaum Foundation up there. You bump into somebody who may be against a person of color. Again, that's a generational thing that's not going to go away personally until generations pass, and it's kind of, it's kind of extinguished that way. So 2 questions. One is the numbers. What are the real numbers? And then what do you guys do, or maybe you can cite some personal experience, when you bump into a situation where it's not just, hey, our policy is this. You're face-to-face with the colleague. What do you suggest people do in that situation to try to, I don't want to say even the playing field, but make your position, to assert your own position? So if you could just answer that candidly, I'd like that.
So I'd like to take this one, at least in parts. I don't know the exact number, and I think that number is hard to arrive at, especially in this predicament, because we are in the pandemic. So the unemployment numbers, I think, have changed and move up and down each and every day. That being said, what strategies are we working on? I would say job alignment. We have to make sure, right, that there's a number of jobs that are in the Berkshires that are unfilled, right? So what are we doing about those job vacancies? And how are we aligning job seekers with employers? And we have Mass Hire here as an anchor institution that is here to support a lot of those needs. That being said, I think that there are ways to also funnel opportunities through the Black community or through the BIPOC community in centralized locations. So for example, the Berkshire Black Economic Council, one of the things that we intend to do is have on our website a place where folks can look for jobs that are available within the Black business community. But also, we want to make a place for folks to be able to post jobs so that they can search, what they might be interested in, how they think that they can earn an income to benefit themselves and their families. So that's what I would say for right now is what we're working on. But I also want to give space to others who are on the panel who want to speak to this as well.
So, like AJ, I can't answer how many people are eligible for employment but do not currently hold a job. I know that over the past year and a half, the Immigrant Center has assisted 231 undocumented households. Those people are not eligible for work authorization because they do not hold a green card, a special work visa, or citizenship yet. Unfortunately, that's not a Berkshire County problem. That's a government problem. We need to pass a pathway to citizenship. We need to allow people who may be eligible for DACA to apply instead of just having the renewals that have been available since the Obama administration. Driver's licenses are another huge problem in Massachusetts. New York, Connecticut, and Vermont all have available driver's licenses for everybody, despite their immigration status. We know transportation is a huge problem in the Berkshires, so 2 things. One is the numbers. What are the real numbers? And then what do you guys do about it? Governor Baker, another issue that unfortunately is outside of Berkshire County's hands. But locally, I think in terms of helping those who are eligible for employment to gain employment is closer to what AJ was saying about having these job search engines be able to be broken down into more palatable searching mediums, like what subject am I interested in? What is my degree or my background in my home country? So instead of searching for a salary or a job title, I'm searching for a category. And then to address your question about anti-Semitism, racism, bigotry, at the Immigrant Center, you know, we're not really faced with people who are bigoted or racist because those of us who are working at the Immigrant Center or our clients, a lot of us are not from the United States. A lot of us are immigrants. So we understand what our clients are going through. We really walk our talk. I would love to be faced with the people who are racist and bigoted because I would love to be able to have the chance to educate them. But unfortunately, those are not the people or entities that are calling us into their workspaces, their communities, their faith-based organizations, what have you. So I just hope that gets out to the community that wants to have that conversation.
So I don't know the numbers, but I will talk about the diversity angle, and what we do in our company is exactly what you said, education. I was the director of training and development for about 10 years before I moved into this position, and my job was to educate our staff on cultural diversity issues. And we would sit down and we would have conversations and we would talk about culture. What is it like to be from this culture? What is their background? What are their little idiosyncrasies that we don't know about? And same thing with us. We had a very, very dysfunctional house at one point with our staff, and it was between diversity levels. And we had, I was doing a team building thing with them, and one of the staff came in and he said, hello, Mr. Sean. And I said, well, I'm not Mr. Sean, I'm just Sean. That's just who I am. And he goes, no, 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 no. In my culture, you are my teacher. This is how I need to direct. And then all of a sudden, the conversation just started going about, why do you do this? And why do you do that? And one staff was listening to the next, and then all of a sudden, there was this great conversation. I just kind of stepped back and went, wow, I don't believe this is happening. And they had this wonderful conversation, and it became one of the best functioning houses in all of our group homes, because they started talking, they started asking questions, they started wondering, and that's what it was all about. So we had to break that barrier and get into the education piece and really pick it apart, and that I think has really helped with some of us. We run into it, again, from my perspective, with people with disabilities. We're constantly educating the community. This is what our guys can do for you. They can help you. They can be productive members of your society. They can be part of your workforce. And we've had to work really, really hard for that, but education is the key.
So I want to just start by saying I love the answer that Sean and Michelle and AJ have given so far. I just think it really shows you the breadth of thinking that's gone into the questions that the questioner is asking. So from the standpoint of the statistics, first of all, I think the unemployment rate right now is about 6.3%. I could be off a little bit about that in Berkshire County, but those statistics are easy to get out on the the REBS website, the state's website, or the Fed's website. There's also a great online resource called Prosperity Now that will show not only those sort of high-level statistics, but also disaggregate by race and ethnicity. And so that's a good resource. But whatever data set you want to look at, you will almost always find, almost everywhere in the United States, including our region, that people of color are overrepresented when it comes to unemployment and overrepresented when it comes to poverty. And that's also true for people within the LGBTQ plus community, people with physical disabilities, et cetera. And that's why we've really changed our business model at Greylock, because the lack of equity with regard to employment leads to significant wealth gap long term. The lack of equity with regard to opportunity leads to a wealth gap long term. And that leads to the kind of social dynamics where someone who's racist or bigoted may have more resources also than the people they're targeting with their comments or with their attitudes. And that we view our job as closing those wealth gaps as a way of leveling the playing field long term. And it starts with opportunities. Our tagline is opportunity grows here. So that's really the whole point of why we've made such a deep investment in DEI, is to change that balance. But it's going to take a long time. It took 400 years to get where we are now. It will take a long time to make it better, but we're on that road. We're not waiting for somebody else to solve the problem. We know that there's a lot we can do within our own institution. As far as what we do with overt racism or bigotry, I have taken some of those phone calls and had some of those conversations with customers who objected to us having our flags out on Pride Month, or the statements that we made after the murder of George Floyd or so forth. And I welcome those phone calls, as Michelle said, because it's a chance to educate. But it starts and ends with our assertion that Greylock's job is to serve the whole community. And if people object to that business model, there's plenty of other terrific financial institutions where they can take their business. But in general, I find that those kind of conversations end in a better place than they start, because somewhere along the line, you do find that shared sense of humanity. And as Sean was saying, a lot of it's just listening, it's trying to figure out what's really getting to the person. In my experience, a lot of those conversations are rooted in kind of an either or mentality. If you, Greylock, are choosing to serve more people of color, does that leave you with less resources for me, your traditional white customer? And the answer is no. No. There's no reason that it has to be either or. We can be both and all in. And that's really the key, I think, to larger economic growth for the whole region, not just for Greylock.
And your name again, sir?
My name?
Yes. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, John. I want to follow up because I answered one part of your question. I think the second part of your question I left. And some of the others got my brain and wheels turning. Just to also remind you that the Berkshires, I think one thing that we do particularly well is that we work well with one another. And that's one of our strong suits. And in that, there's a lot of collaborative work between different organizations to educate our Berkshire region and the workforce that makes up this place, to strengthen it and make them more culturally sound, right? Because there's a lot of racial and cultural complexities that are at stake in a diverse place like ours. So we have organizations like Multicultural Bridge and the NAACP who are offering educational trainings so people can understand racial dynamics and how they can perform anti-racist work. And there's also work going on, for example, with Linda Dooley's, the Dooley Leadership Experience, that is working in workforce development, career readiness, career preparedness, and soft skills coaching, which is really going to uplift the Berkshire workforce as a whole. So I think on the one hand, we have to target our approaches for employers and employees differently. Maybe it's on the employee level that we're working on shaping those soft skills that helps debunk and de-break some of the myths and misconceptions about minorities in the workplace. And then there's also that side of, all right, our leadership teams. When was the last time you had a cultural competency training? And if it's been more than 6 months ago, it's already been probably too long. So things are changing, and our community is changing, and so are the norms and customs and everything else that's tied to that. So you need to continue to educate yourself. It's not enough just to go to one cultural competency training and think that, oh, I've got my stamp of approval. I'm now on my way to being a good steward of anti-racist work. Well, the education's continually developing, so you have to continue to go and get educated and re-educated so you can continue to improve your community.
Hi, my name is Wiley Goodman. I'm with the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission. And I was curious if you guys know about, there's a program in Springfield called Two Generation Whole Families Approach to Careers Workforce Readiness that it's program that's inspired by a model from the Aspen Institute, and it basically works with 2 generations of families. It's a wraparound approach with family support systems. I'm wondering if anything like that is being done in Berkshire County that we should be aware of.
I think as we're all shaking our head, we're not aware of any such sort of program.
But if Berkshire Regional Planning Commission wants to
Could you
bring it
ask
to
the question
town,
again, please?
What was that? Sorry.
I was saying if Berkshire Regional Planning Commission wants to introduce us to that program and bring it to town, we're all ears.
Okay, I can't. That's a higher pay grade than, but yeah, it's an interesting. It's through the Springfield Works, and if it's funded by a grant through the Working Cities Challenge. So just bring that to people's attention.
Thank you for sharing that. Do we have another question? Everybody good place to wrap up? All right. Well, I think we're at a good place. I really appreciate our panel and your thoughtfulness answering these questions. And I'm really excited to see what Lever has in store. And I want to thank you all for attending today's event. And I look forward to working with Lever in the future. Elizabeth, thank you.
Yes, so let's just thank John and Sean, Jade, Michelle, and AJ. What a great job. Thank you so much. And I want to thank all of you for attending Lever's Innovation Summit. This is our last event of the summit, and it's been just really a great 2 days. We should really give our thanks to all of the staff at Lever that have put this together. We've got Jeffrey, Averill, Jade, and Brent. Thank you so much. So I hear there will be another Innovation Summit in 2 years? And maybe by then we won't be wearing masks. Thank you all. Any last words, Jeffrey? No. Safe trip home, everyone.